How do we do a look back on 2020 without saying things like unprecedented times and strange and all those kind of things you've heard a million times before? One doesn't envy those who have to put together those reviews of the year on the telly and the radio at the minute, because they have to use those phrases all the time. In rugby league, we can kind of avoid that. Hopefully, we'll find out over the next couple of hours, because that's how much stuff we've got to fit into this 4020, some bits of 2020 special. Did I say special was one of the words I wasn't going to use? Oh well. Let's start at the start. Remember those pre-times, if you were. And we were all excited because it was a brand new season. We were all looking forward to it. Super League was back. Toronto were in, and they brought with them a very special man in Sonny Bill Williams.
Sonny, the superstar, welcome to Super League. How are you looking forward to the challenge ahead?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Thank you, and just grateful for this opportunity. But with this opportunity, I know comes a lot of expectations and pressure, but I'm just enjoying the ride. I'm very lucky to have walked into a team that the camaraderie is right up there. Really enjoying our coach, really enjoying, and the staff. You can tell they really care about the players, and I think with all of those, I guess, all of that combined, and you chuck it into the mounting pot, I believe that that's a recipe for success.
You've got a lot going on, obviously, with the impending birth of a child. I guess you'd be glad to get that out of the way and then really get stuck into what is a long season here in Super League.
Yes, it's a very long season. Hopefully we can go deep into the competition as well, but for me, it's about working hard, doing the little things well, not overplaying my card at the start, and then building into the season and hopefully being able to sprinkle some magic as the time goes on.
How did that turn out in the end? I can't quite remember. Sonny Bill Williams then was the big star of 2020, but the big star of 2021 could be a man who's joining up with the Warrington Wolves, and we spoke earlier in the year about Greg Inglis.
I was just looking back through the archives, and it was April last year when we were all sat above a bookshop in Leeds, and you were there, John, and Gary Schofield was there, and we were talking about the retirement of Greg Inglis.
We need to pay tribute, and we've got the right man here to do that. Greg Inglis retired this morning from Rugby League.
Still can't get over the
32 years old.
Yes.
Player of the a player of the generation. I don't know from your perspective of how you saw him develop, but seeing him over here as the fully fledged player that we did, one of the greatest I've seen. The phrase is used a lot, men against boys. He always was that for me. Australia will miss him, Queensland will miss him, South Sydney will
England won't miss him.
We won't. But another shining light has been diminished.
As a New South Welshman, I won't miss him because he should have been playing for New South Wales because he was born and raised there. But that's another issue. No, I agree completely. I was actually thinking about this, listening to a podcast on my way in, another podcast, and thinking about Sco. In a way, he's been another Meninga. Different in some ways, but the physical presence, the fend, you played against Mal, and
but also to Mal's partner in crime, G Miles as well. Yeah. So Greg, he's been a freak of rugby league player, and you will put him in Meninga's.
I think you've got to. I don't think he's an immortal.
No, he's not.
He's
in that bracket.
All-time great.
He's in that
he
bracket.
Was unplayable.
He's in that bracket. We Mal. No, he won't be an immortal, but he's in that. You can put him in that bracket with Mal and G Miles without a doubt. But also as well, when you look at the Australian centres, you can put him there as well. The same with Mick Thorne and Steve Rogers. Yeah. This is how good.
Yeah. But he also
a great player
he did it at fullback as well.
And at 6, I can remember him in a grand final. I think it was 2007. They might have been cheating the cat, but we won't talk about that. But he was playing at 6 for Melbourne, and that was a Melbourne team with a much younger Billy Slater, Cameron Smith, before Coop gone. He was playing at 6, and he was a ball runner. He wasn't a distributor, but he was devastating at 6.
Exactly, and also with the size of man again, it's exactly like Big Gene and Big Mal. What pace did he have? He had no issues going 60, 70, 80 yards whatsoever. Simply a freak of a rugby league player. He will be sadly missed. Absolutely sadly missed.
Probably 2014, apart from all the Origin tries and the Australian internationals, 2014, winning that grand final with Sam Burgess at South. 43 years. The Bunnies had to wait. That's probably his
I was lucky enough to present him with a golden boot at Ellen Road in 2009 when he became the best player in the world, and rightly so from there. So I don't think there'd be any argument of Greg Inglis being with the greatest Australian Rugby League.
Yeah, sad to see him, forced out by injury.
What's he been forced for? Just niggling injuries.
His shoulder, I think, is the main. He's had issues, body issues. I think it's just as Phil said, there's like men against boys, and I think now he's coming back to the field and he's not that dominant force because his body is letting him down. I think it's 16 or 15 years that he's.
Do you know what? As well, then fair play to him for being open and honest to say, listen, I can't take it anymore. He might still enjoy going to training, he might still enjoy the playing, but what he's realised is now, even though he's only 32, I tell you what, some of these boys a lot younger than me. You look at the size of these fellas from there. Yeah, fair play to him, but.
And he's going to stay involved in the sport because he's been a fantastic ambassador for the Indigenous.
Hey, that's what the Aussies do, don't they? They keep the greats of the game, don't they?
Yeah, South's going to look after him.
He's come back for the challenge, obviously, of playing in Super League. We know what the word challenge means. He's off to the Warrington Wolves. Phil, are we excited?
I think we should be. It's just really interesting that it's come at a time when we're talking about perhaps decreasing the salary cap. How are we going to in future not only attract the great stars, but retain the ones that we've got. And as we start the debate that it should be lessened for next year, Warrington pull another rabbit out of a hat and bring a name that is more recognisable than just Super League, which is clearly what marquee signings are all about. And whether they're paying him marquee money or not, the debate should now be around, do we actually need a salary cap, or do we need people like Greg Inglis coming over and playing in our competition? I think it fills an obvious hole for Warrington on their playing staff. I think I'd be surprised if Anthony Gelling plays too many more games for them, and I think Luther Burrell's future is in the second row if he's got one. So he's the right signing in the right position. I think it's great for the competition. If he'd have been there unveiled at the start of the season alongside the Maloneys and the Sonny Bill Williams, we'd have been going, wow, this is the best intake we've ever had. So yes, it's a good news story, and the parlour state that we're in at the moment, any big name signing is a good signing.
John, how fit is he going to be, bearing in mind that he retired last year because of injury?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, the talk is that he didn't actually retire because of injury, but because he felt he couldn't play to the same high standards. So it was more to do with mental health. And I think he's come out and sort of confirmed that he's bipolar, and he's obviously faced battles with depression before. So he has had shoulder and I think knee issues. I think that the thing will be, it'll be 2 years he'll been out of the game, so he'll be 34 in January. And I can't think of a player in recent times who's been out of the game, perhaps not without a drug ban, who's come back. I think Gareth Ellis was 18 months, obviously a bit different when you're a middle. So yeah, it's going to be a fair challenge for him. But I mean, if he can get back fit and mentally he's right, obviously he's probably a future immortal and one of the all-time greats. So it's definitely a win on the publicity marketing side for Super League, because he is a genuine big name.
Do you remember those days? We should sit behind a desk and not do things on the internet. Skype and Zoom, where would we be without you in 2020? Hopefully less reliant on them in 2021, but we'll find out, of course. Now, in those times when we were allowed out, we went to Headingley in the early part of the year for the Wheelchair Golden Boot Awards, and we were there and spoke to the winner of the first ever Golden Boot. Here is Jack Brown.
You're showing the kind of composure here. Your teammates are pulling you off behind me right now. Showing the kind of composure that's led you to become the first ever winner of the Wheelchair Golden Boot. Jack, how does it feel?
It's incredible. It's almost, it's a little bit unbelievable. I can't really get to grasp of me winning it. I can understand what it means, but I can't understand how I feel yet.
I guess that's going to be one of the things, that you are the first person ever to win this. That's not going to sink in for a while, I guess.
No, it's not. And I was talking to a couple of people about other players and legends who have won a Golden Boot in the past, from the men's and the women's and things like that. It's something that I just can't see myself having got. But I know it's a little bit unreal. What is this? I don't know.
You've got a World Cup in 22 months' time. You're proudly wearing the England blazer today. How big of a boost is that for your personal confidence and the England team that you have the Golden Boot winner in your side?
it's a good boost for the World Cup coming up, and I'm really excited for it. There's we're obviously going to be running alongside the men and the women's game, but one thing that the award really does stand for is everything that the RFL is doing for Wheelchair Rugby League, and what that is just putting us in the same light of. Sorry, I couldn't beat that. He beat me. Sorry. The award stands for something bigger than all of us, really. And when the World Cup's coming up, we've just found out we've got the first Test match is going to be England-Australia at the Copper Box in London. Now, for Wheelchair Rugby League players or people who know of it, sort of thing, they'll be like, "Oh my God, the Copper Box! Oh my God, Australia!" It's got everything in its synopsis to be like the greatest opening movie of the World Cup of all time.
Well, hopefully we'll see plenty of Jack and his teammates at the Wheelchair Rugby League World Cup, which comes up, of course, in 2021. And hopefully we'll see some Women's Rugby League, which we didn't see any of in 2020. But we did start to look behind the scenes at Wakefield earlier in the year. And here's some footage of them in the gym talking about their hopes for the new season.
Danny, brand new season coming up. They're working you hard ahead of it.
They certainly are. It's been a long pre-season, but it's done us good. I mean, the intensity out there is just awesome, the attitudes. There's times when I think we want to stop, but we just keep on going, and everybody's still smiling, so it's all good.
We've got to improve the strength. There's girls who've never done this kind of training before, and like for injury prevention, like the contact, every side of the game. We saw last year that girls are athletes they're playing against. They're not just strong or they're not just skillful girls. They can run and they're athletic and they can go for 80 minutes. So we've got to compete with that, haven't we?
I'm transitioning from union, so I play union for Barnsley Ladies and making that change when the season's finished over to Leeds. So it's been a bit tricky picking everything up, but loving it so far. But yeah, lots and lots of hard work. So training 3 times a week, gym session here, which is really good with Matt and Graham. They're really pushing us through his paces, so getting stronger.
It's been really tough in gym, but I think it's going to do everyone good this year. We've got to put a lot of hard work in, like pre-season we're a lot fitter, and like we matched teams in the first half, so hopefully we're going to match them in the second half this year.
They've done really well since we've had them. We've done well this year. Last year we had them for 6 weeks before pre-season. It wasn't long enough, and I think it showed beginning of the season we just weren't fit enough. This year we've had a big group of girls. We've had them here since November. After initial trials, and the majority of them have stuck to it and they've been working good, so yeah, it's been brilliant to have them this year.
No, it is hard work, but the S&C blocks that we've got a minute, they're outstanding. Excited, a bit nervous, because like I say, it's a massive step up. Every team's trained so well.
We've all learnt how to play with each other as well, because there's a lot of switching around last season, but yeah, there's so many positives to take out of last season. We know what to do with watch videos and learn from our mistake. A lot better than we thought. Well, any of us thought that we'd be feeling. Obviously, at the end of last season, it wasn't really the best ending. But yeah, I think the positivity is really high here, and we're really pushing ourselves in training.
It's a difficult situation for a minute because they've got jobs, they've got other commitments, but to be showing up on a night and through winter when it's horrible weather and to be coming in good numbers like they have done tonight, and working hard and putting it in, it's great. It just shows commitment to level them. But then it's paying off. We've got girls, haven't we, playing at different levels of England squad now this year, and I think hopefully they'll kick on this year.
What's up?
Scully.
Go on.
He's not here, by the way.
He's still ill. He's
have
still
a
ill.
great show. Yes, I'm on drugs, but the rhinos for the truth.
Ring him up. Put him on speakerphone.
Well, you won't be able to hear him though, will you?
No, they'll hear him. Go on, get him.
I'll be back soon to get ripped in, he says.
Oh, we're going to ring him now live on the show. He'll probably swear when he answers the phone.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's all right. We're explicit on Facebook, so
we're all right,
not for kids on YouTube, so it's okay.
Is he going to apologise to tomorrow?
Parental advisory.
See if he answers.
Hello, this is...
It's a good day.
You got through to the legend. Leave a message for the legend.
Sorry about this, people watching on you. He's not going to answer, is he?
The legend will get back to you.
Has he still got that voice?
Yeah,
we're going to find out.
All right, son.
All right, mate. Yeah, you're live on the show, legend. We've just got your message, so we thought we'd get you on. How are you? Everyone's worried about you. You're still alive. We've proven that, I think, by getting you on.
I am indeed, yes. I sure am. I tell you what, fellas, I can't wait to get back and get ripped in. Can't wait to get ripped in. I tell you what, if I was there tonight, I would be ripping in. And I tell you what, them Warrington players, I can reassure you, would feel 2'6" after I would have finished with them. I can reassure you, fellas.
What about Richie Myler? Anyway, I'm wearing his shirt now. I've got a Leeds shirt on in homage to Myler, who Leeds brilliant, and you think they're going to win the treble?
Hey mate, listen, you cannot say anything else but high praise for the kid, to be honest with you, because, and exactly as a coach should do, he was being honest with Richie and he said, listen, there's no place for the half-back, exactly what we've done from there, and if you want to stay, because he was offered to other clubs, as we all know from there, and if you want to stay, then you've got to fight for a place, and the kid has got the right attitude, and he wants to stay at Leeds. He knows exactly what size club Leeds is, and the kid's got the right attitude from there. He's going to be used as that utility player, and he's enjoyed himself. He's got a smile on his face, and certainly when you looked at that performance by him on Friday night, and after the mistake of just dropping the ball right in the bread basket, and you could feel everybody go, oh no, what's he playing at fullback? But after that, absolutely sensational. 9 out of 10 performance. For me, it was his best game he's had in the Leeds colours, and fair play to the kid, and he's enjoying himself. The coach has been open and honest. He's showing the right desire, showing the right attitude, and long may it continue.
Just finally, who's going to get sacked first, Radders or Steve Price?
Well, listen, we never, it's like, there's two things that we never do on the show. We never slag off the officials, and we don't want anybody to be sacked, do we? But
you're going to get sacked if you don't get off the fence. What's the answer to the question?
Well, the dilemma quite simply is, have the players at the club fed up with a face and voice. And if I'm honest with you, if you have to nail me to it, and he's a good friend of mine, it looks like Rallers may go first, because them players for me after that yesterday's performance, I think they might be fed up with his face, and I think they might be fed up with the voice, and it saddens me to say that.
Oh, well, we'll see. It's good to hear from you, mate. You will be back soon. Won't you just reassure the listeners you'll be back soon?
Yeah, well, indeed, mate, and I'm targeting, and as I say, I think people know I've had a bit of a problem with my left eye. I've got another operation in 6 weeks. Hopefully, after that operation in 6 weeks, another 4 weeks recovery, I'll be back. I'm looking for the 1st of June. I'll be getting ripped in, and one thing for sure, when you look at the league table come the 1st of June, I'll tell you what, the legend will be right. Leeds will be heading for the treble.
Right, good man, we're going to go. We'll see you later on, pal. Take care.
Enjoy the show, boys.
Cheers,
Enjoy the show. Bye for now.
There you go, the legend, as bonkers as ever.
Of course, no broadband in Belle Isle. Strange times. As I say, strange times. I said I wouldn't say it, but I have. Remember, 15th of March, 2020. Where were you? I was at the Menderhose Jungle. It would turn out to be the last Rugby League game I'd see live in this year. And here, after that game, were the coaches, Dal Powell and Christian Wolf.
We have absolutely no idea what's going to happen over the coming weeks, so looking forward to getting an indication from the RFL where we're heading. Everybody understands that it's a really difficult position at the moment for the whole country, for the whole world. You're looking around and it's such a confused scenario at the minute. So yeah, I think obviously there'll be some meetings in the next few days, which gives us an indication of what's happening. And then we can plan within our organisation what we're going to do, and take it from there. But yeah, it's pretty tough at the moment, an eerie feeling around everywhere really of what's going on in the whole world and how people deal with it. Rugby league's a pretty parochial sport in terms of the towns that it's played in, and it'd be difficult, I think. But I think sport in general. I mean, you're looking on Sky Sports at the moment, I'm looking at it going, geez, there's nothing on. It's just crazy, and it's going to be really awkward and difficult from a sport perspective of how you actually piece your plan together. I mean, who knows? You know, there's all sorts of scenarios that could happen, and we've just got to be able to deal with all of them in a really professional and organised way. But as of this moment, we don't quite know what it's going to look like. So yeah, there's interesting times ahead. It's, you know, none of us have seen anything like this, have we? So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where how it develops and how we deal with it all.
I'm assuming that something's going to happen there in terms of the competition, whether it's paused or whether we go behind closed doors. I'm really not sure. And yeah, the only thing I would say there is that we just need a really good, strong decision. We can't sort of go week to week wondering what's going on. We need a really, really good, strong decision, and then we can all crack on and figure out what we do with it.
Did you have any misgivings about playing today, or was there never any doubt that you? Because obviously Leeds Rhinos did not play. Any doubt that Saints would play at Cast today?
No, not at all. It's certainly no reason for our performance. We planned all week and knew all week that we were playing the game today, and we spoke about that being the only thing that we could control, and the only thing that we did know was that we had a game today. So obviously there's a little bit of uncertainty about what happens next, but that was certainly no reason for us not being where we needed to be today.
Remember back in January, a long time ago now it seems, almost decades ago, the Rugby League World Cup draws were made at Buckingham Palace of all places, and overseen by Prince Harry. I think he's still a prince, isn't he? The Duke of... Where's he? The Duke of Sussex, that's the one. So he was there. Meghan, sadly not there. She was too busy doing something else. Probably recording a podcast. Who knew? If she sets up a Rugby League podcast next year, I won't be happy. So they did the draws, and we were not at Buckingham Palace because we're not important enough. Come on. But we did go to Manchester to watch them on a big screen, and we caught up with two of those who will hopefully be involved in the World Cup. The Wales coach, John Keir, but first here's the England captain, Emily Rudge.
Emily, first of all, obviously we're at the World Cup draw, very exciting. England kicking off the World Cup against Brazil in 18 months' time.
Yeah, really exciting to be drawn against Brazil for that first game. You know, we've never come up against them before, and I know that they're definitely a new international country to come up against us. But yeah, it's exciting, and I'm sure they'll bring a tough physical side to that first game.
They're one of a couple of nations that England haven't played before as well. You've got Canada in that group as well, and then Papua New Guinea, of course, where you've just been and come back from.
Yeah, it's great to come up against Papua New Guinea. Again, I know that they're building, and they were a tough side when we faced them at the back end of 2019, so I'm sure that'll be another tough physical game for us. In terms of Canada, we've seen them play in the 2017 World Cup, and again a good side. We didn't face them, so that'll be again the first time England women will play against Canada in the World Cup.
Would you rather have drawn New Zealand in the group stage, or leave them perhaps for a potential semi-final?
I think you can look at it two ways. I mean, we'll have hopefully a good group games, and then we can build into hopefully the semi-final and the final. But in the other side of that is that, you know, we could have some real tough games in the group and be pretty battered and bruised for the semi-final and the final. So I think, you know, we're looking forward to the World Cup, and the draw for us is what it is. So we'll face those teams when we come up against them.
Off the back of the tour of Papua New Guinea, we all got up early to watch the test match that was shown over here. What was it like leading the country for the first time? Absolutely
unreal. The whole opportunity and the experience to go out to Papua New Guinea was a massive step for Women's Rugby League and for England women. We took out a lot from that competition, and it was a real learning curve for us. You know, we fell short in that second test game, and we'll take a lot away from that. I think, you know, if anything, it'll probably put us in a better position. We know that we need to work really hard in order to match up to the likes of Papua New Guinea, Australia and New Zealand, and we've got, you know, like you say, a big 18 months in front of us to make sure that we are competing at the world stage when it comes to the 2020 World Cup.
Right, John, you've got a smile on your face, that's good. You've got a tough draw at the World Cup.
We've got a very physical draw. We have. You've got Tonga, who you could argue in recent... the past few performances are the best national team in the world, but I'm sure Australia got something to say about that, and New Zealand and England. But then also we've got PNG were very physical, Cook Islands, another South Sea island, so we know full well it's going to be a physical challenge. But the comforting thing for me is it's a lot different playing PNG in England than it is playing PNG in the Southern Hemisphere. So we know they've got a long way to travel. We know they'll face logistical problems which we had to face when we went down and played in PNG. So I think we can look with a bit of confidence that we're developing as a nation once again. We've had to have a bit of a rebirth in the 2000s, and I think we're developing as a nation. We can certainly challenge for this year's European Championships, and hopefully we can get a victory and possibly a couple which will qualify us for the quarter final in the World Cup in 2021.
So looking at it then, I guess one of your toughest jobs as well as a coach is getting players to commit after long seasons to playing. When there's a World Cup on the horizon, I'm thinking there's a few more players willing to go that extra mile.
I agree with you totally. I mean, obviously, as you've indicated, we get a Morgan Knowles, a Regan Grace, you get a Ben Flower, who all put their hands up, and you start looking and thinking we've got a pretty good team. And I'm certain it'll be sort of Ben's last hurrah at international level, so I'm certain he'll put his hand up. And obviously Morgan and Reece especially is a very, very Regan, is a very proud Welshman. So I really feel we'll have some quality names putting their hands up. Hopefully they'll do it this year so we can have a real meaningful European Championship competition, which will help build towards that World Cup. But as I say, I'm excited, I'm looking forward to it, and I think we'll do well.
How important is international rugby league, do you feel, to the growth of the sport as a whole?
International, I've always believed it. I mean, I've been involved in international rugby league since 1992, so it'll be 29 years when it comes to the 2021 World Cup, and I've always believed that international sport is the way forward. If you want media attention, if you want the headlines in any sports bulletin, it needs to come on the back of the international game. And I think they've got it in the Southern Hemisphere. I'm not saying Australia have, but I think the others have. And the growth of the Pacific nations has been absolutely fantastic, which is why you see them so strong now. I think we've got to address that in the Northern Hemisphere and make sure that the Walesers, the Islands, the Scotlands and the French are given every vehicle in which to develop and improve. And then we may be able to challenge the Southern Hemisphere development.
How important was it, do you feel, Prince Harry being involved today? A heck of a venue for the draw.
Oh, it was fantastic, wasn't it? I mean, as I say, I in '92, when my first involvement, it was on the convoluted system of just getting up in a final. '95 was assistant coach to Phil Ladd. That was a great tournament, but again, it was minute in comparison to what this draw's done for the 2021 World Cup. And also you've got to admire the fact that there's a Women's World Cup going on, the Wheelchair World Cup, which shows the inclusivity. So I think it's going to be a big watershed, potentially, for rugby league, and we need to grasp it. We need to put on some great entertainment, we need to show great organisation, we need to get great crowds, and if you do that, I think people will look upon rugby league in a whole different light.
I want to know who will play Ralph Rimmer in The Crown when they get that far. The World Cup then is exciting. It's something to look forward to in 2021. God knows we need it. And here's some of the players you should be looking forward to seeing in action if you've bought your tickets already.
Can you talk more about the NRL, Sir Stephen? Any players you're looking forward to seeing at the World Cup in 2021?
Yes, one in particular. Stephen Crichton. I think he's been absolutely sensational for Penrith this year. 19, centre, saw him for the Australian schoolboys when he came over here. Born in Apia in Samoa. He could be one of the most exciting young players that we see at the World Cup. Watch out for him. And there is a prop whose name I'm going to make a complete mess of at Gold Coast Titans. His surname is Fotuaika. Kiwi. He looks like he could be anything.
Actually.
Right, well, again...
Background, so...
Could be either. I think was he born in Wellington? But qualifies for either. But again, imagine what he could be in a year's time. So they're two in particular I would look out for.
Yeah, that's a good shout, Phil. I think also at Penrith, Brian To'o, the winger, I think he's played for Samoa. He'll definitely be in their World Cup squad. Big Tino at Melbourne. I think he's a Kiwi.
He's a Kiwi as well, I think, yeah.
He's a beast. They're going to have him and Nelson Asofa Solomona running at people.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. And then, obviously, Fiji. I mean, everyone knows, Api Coruscant's been playing for Fiji for a long time, but he's been killing it at Penrith. And then you've got the wingers, obviously Micah Sivo at Parramatta is having a huge year. Ravalawa is another one. At St George Illawarra. Who else is there? You've put me on the spot there.
Billy Kickow, who we saw at the last World Cup, was just starting to break through.
Villamau.
Billy, to me, he looks like he could be one of the best forwards in the world at the moment. And yeah, I think what we are saying is Pacific Island nations are going to be fantastic to watch. That if we can promote it right, the England-Samoa opener, and who knows, and it may even bring Toronto into the conversation, but technically Sonny Bill could be lining up for Samoa in that game, and in terms of a boost that would give to the World Cup would be massive, because just look at the impact Gavin and Henson possibly playing for Wales could have at the World Cup, which is being talked about.
Game. Come on.
I know, but it's being talked about, and at half of the time he's talking about it and creating a buzz about it. And if he did play in a Rugby League World Cup, it would be big news.
Yeah, it depends how many pints he's probably had the night before. But on Samoa, the squad that Samoa could put together, when you also consider if they can encourage the likes of Tuivasa-Sheck or Sofa Solomona to switch. But even without that, they've got an unbelievable. It's got Jerome Luai at Penrith as well. I think he's Samoan background. I mean, I think more of the issue is the coach, whether Matt Parrish is the right coach for them. I would probably wager a guess he isn't. But if they could get a Christian Wolf-style coach, I think they could emulate Tonga, and they've got the raw talent to do that. And the other one who is a bit of a left field is Campbell Graham at South Sydney, a centre or a winger. Now, I think he born and raised in Sydney, so he's Australian, but his parents are... Sorry, I just had a phone call. Don't know who that was. His parents are Scottish and English, so he's eligible, I believe, for either. So, yeah, if you're Sean Wayne, would you pick him?
I think Scotland have already earmarked him, and he would have already played for them, I think, but for injury. But I just think the fact that we can talk about the World Cup, and tickets went on sale to the Rugby League family, i.e. anybody who'd registered on the website yesterday, and I'm told that the initial feedback is that exceeded expectations. Tickets for every one of the 61 games were bought, and the systems were pushed to their absolute limit for the demand that came through the website, and that is fantastic, because again, when you think that we're in such a precarious place at the moment regarding knowing what's happening tomorrow, never mind in a year and a bit's time, the World Cup organisers have done everything superbly. They've kept to their schedule. They've still got announcements geared up to make as we get to further landmarks like 400 days out, and the public are backing them. It would appear that the big games, the Arsenal game, the game at St James's to open it, the finals, they all had really good sales first day up. So let's talk more about the World Cup. Let's start talking it up now, because that could be the saviour of rugby league, and is another reason why I would preserve this current domestic season as best as we can now, in the knowledge that we have to make it the biggest and the best it's ever been.
Just to add, to players there, one name I think that definitely worth a mention is Justin Olam at Melbourne, PNG centre. Just hits like a fridge, very powerful, and I think he could make a big splash at the tournament.
And Jerome Hughes, who I think has exceeded expectations, Kiwi halfback that again could really love playing over here, and has looked fantastic in the run to the final stages of the season.
If you look at that New Zealand squad, even just in the halves, they've got Sean Johnson, Cody Nikarima, Jerome Luai, Benji Marshall. The forward pack is the Bromwiches and Sofa Solomona, and they've got
Brandon Smith as well. You can throw into
when he comes back from his jaw issue. They've really got no excuses. I think in this tournament next year to be in the final, if not win the whole thing.
It's just a shame that Ryan Pappenhausen isn't playing for Holland this week.
I'd be wondering if he knew where Holland was, but that might be a bit harsh.
So the Super League would eventually resume. There'd be no more action outside the top flight. The Championship and League One seasons are cancelled. We caught up with a man in charge at the Sheffield Eagles. Their General Manager, Liam Claffey, joined us on the show.
Yeah, I mean, our first port of call was we spoke to the players and staff, and we surveyed the players, and of the 22 players who still got with us, all of them came back and said they don't want to take part in a autumn competition. So it was an easy call for us after they said that to us. There's the prohibited cost of testing, taking the players and myself and Mark off furlough and things like that. So it was a no-brainer for us. It was difficult. Obviously, we want to be back. We're missing it, and we want the fans to obviously take advantage of the season tickets and the sponsors to get their money's worth and things like that. But yeah, it's a difficult one for us, and also the fact that we don't want to hamper our next season. So next season they're still looking like next season will start in February because we're bookended by the World Cup, so we can't delay next season. So playing October, November, giving the players maybe a few weeks off before we get back into pre-season over Christmas isn't something we wanted to do. So difficult one, but it was like I say, made easy by what the players told us. We follow their word.
You mentioned the World Cup, and obviously Sheffield, the Doncaster axis as well, is going to be a key part of it. You've got your fixtures now. Bramall Lane coming on board. Was it worth sacrificing 2020 because 2021 has the promise of almost a relaunch of Sheffield Eagles? Yeah,
it's massive for us, the World Cup. We bid in 2013 and we lost out. We wanted the England-Ireland game, which was a sellout at Huddersfield, obviously with Mark Aston then being the coach of Ireland. And we lost out on it, and it was very disappointing to lose that because we thought we could sell out Bramall Lane at 32,000. Huddersfield sold out at 25,000. So we made it up to get England. Again, BBC, primetime. Yeah, it is against Greece, but again, I don't want to give any disrespect to Greece. And we're hosting them in the city, and having them out in the community for 4 to 6 weeks when they're in the tournament, when they're here, will be massive for us. And also having the 4 wheelchair sides here, part of our development plan moving forward is to have a wheelchair side, and we'll be pushing ahead with that very quickly. Because having 4 wheelchair sides based here and having those sides based here playing here in the semi-finals is huge for that side of the game as well. So no, it can't be over or underestimated how big it is for us. And early next year we'll have fingers crossed, a development officer in place. We're working with the RFL, working with the council, and working with the City Trust to basically all 4 of us come together and fund a post for minimum of 2 years. And we've not had that for a few years now after the troubles we've had. So to get someone full-time back in post, utilising the World Cup, and then afterwards getting back into schools, it's big for us. It's not just the game at Bramall Lane and the games at EIS, it's everything that comes around it. So yeah, we're massively looking forward to it.
We talk about London a lot being nomadic, Liam, but obviously yourselves at Sheffield, you've had a year at Doncaster, you're at Wakefield. Well, we obviously love having you at Wakefield, but not quite the same as being in your own city, in your own home, and a year at Ollerton since moving from Don Valley since they got knocked down. You must be really, really desperate to get the Olympic Legacy Park sorted and fit for Championship Rugby or Super League in the future.
Yeah, I think I came back. I got back involved in late 2015, and I've worked at 7 different venues for home matches in 5 years. So we've been all over, and it's tough for us. It's tough for the fans, and it's not ideal. I've got to say that people like Michael Carter at Wakefield and Carl at Doncaster have been. I don't know what we would have done without them. To be fair, we struggle. So to have the Olympic Legacy Park. Again, the word is September they'll start. Obviously, COVID's put that back. But yeah, if we can get that started in September and get a lot of the work done prior to next season and have a makeshift Olympic Legacy Park while it's constructed and finished in circa May, June next year, it'd be huge for us. Huge. We've not had a venue since Don Valley got knocked down. And again, for all Don Valley's negatives and being the running track and all the rest of it, it was a home, it was a base for us. We've not had that. We've not had a training base, an office, and a playing venue since Don Valley, which will be next year, sort of 8 years ago. So to have that again, it'd be huge for us, and to push forward again, because our crowds have continually dropped, we need to get back up because we're not sustainable at the moment. It's been tough for us. It's been tough for the supporters. So to get that going is again huge for us. So 2021 could be a big year for Sheffield. Fingers crossed.
Sportsman City, of course, Paul. Sheffield, two football clubs, one in the Premier League now. The ice hockey team won something this year. I can't remember what it was. Oh, the Challenge Cup, that was it. Basketball team. Of course, the Eagles as well. Not too far away from our exciting home base of the M62. Somehow, we need to give them more support than perhaps we have in the past.
Personally, I love to see the game grow in Sheffield. Sheffield, for me, was home for 3 years when I went to university to get my increasingly worthless journalism degree. So I've a lot of great memories from there. I remember back then, obviously, covering the Eagles a little bit as part of my degree. And also as a rugby league fan in the city, I was aware that, the sport really didn't have much of a presence, much of a consciousness in the wider city. Obviously, you had passionate people involved in the Eagles who clearly loved the game. And Mark Aston being the number one example of that. It would be fantastic if we were able to sort of rope that area in to the M62 corridor, as you say, not too far away from us. We've not quite managed to do that. And I guess Football Mad City, you're up against two really big clubs there to establish a sort of hold in the market. But there's positives for us. There's things we can sell to Sheffield about rugby league. Obviously, the history of the club, the 1998 and all that. It's an area we should be doing more in. I would feel generally, and I think we talked extensively about the game's efforts to go in Toronto last time I was here, and about needing a collective desire to make that possible, having a strategy centrally to deliver that. We need that focus similarly in places like Sheffield, who could be a great base for the sport, but have just slightly eluded us so far, with all due respect to all the great work that Liam and Sheffield have done over the years.
I think the other thing about Sheffield is it's a potential source of players, and Liam's got a couple from the city that are playing regularly for the Eagles. There are others that have gone on to play with other clubs, and there is an untapped resource there on the doorstep. There's some really good community clubs in the South Yorkshire area. Their fortunes have fluctuated in line with the Eagles not having the prominence that they perhaps once did. But again, that's another untapped resource for the sport that we just need to bring on board. We need the Eagles with a proper academy or a centre of excellence for South Yorkshire. All of that is actually low-hanging fruit. And I think that's where the sport becomes frustrating at times, because you're absolutely right that this is relevant to the Toronto debate on the basis of the fact that if you don't have an expansion policy, you don't know where any club fits in and what more they can do. But this is one that's on our doorstep that we've never properly exploited. A club who won arguably one of, if not the most dramatic cup finals that the nation had ever seen, and within a year didn't exist. As a sport, how somebody needs to grab hold of that and be responsible for it and look to rectify it.
Yeah, on the player front, I mean, we had our performance pathway taken away from us in 2016, but it took those 16 years to build that up. And if we do get a great bit in international, then fantastic. But we weren't aiming for that. You've got Corey Aston, Eddie Batty playing out there. You've got 5 players at Sheffield who've come through the academy: Paddy Burns, Greg Burns, Blake Broadbent, Ryan Miller, and then there's players out there in League One. There's a lot of players in League One that come through the Sheffield system, like Kadeem Williams at Coventry and Connor Scott at Doncaster. They are out there. They are out there playing professional game. It's not that just because they're not at the higher echelons of Super League and internationals, but they are professional players. So that will take time to develop again, but that's a key aim for us as well moving forward.
We'll talk more about the Championship and League One shutdown, I guess, later. But just before we move on to the games, I mentioned the Steelers there a few moments ago. There's that appetite, I guess, in Sheffield as a city for family-based sport. Yes, they've got the big advantage of they're inside in an arena. You're outside and you can't predict the weather. But that's obviously there is a market there in the city for people who want to watch some kind of physical sport. It's just a matter of getting them through the turnstiles.
Yeah, and we need to. I think we've been our own worst enemy in terms of marketing and promoting the sport. But again, it's difficult to promote to the people in Sheffield when you're playing in Wakefield or Doncaster, or you're playing at a makeshift Olympic Legacy Park with portable toilets and a temporary stand. So we're conscious of that, and when the stadium does happen, we will have some efforts, both time and money wise, on marketing, because that's our sort of one chance of it. You look at what Warrington did when they moved from Wilderspool to Halliwell Jones. You look at locally here what Rotherham United when they moved from Millmore to the New York. Now it's a big opportunity for us, so we need to grasp it with both hands, especially with the World Cup coming as well. Jump on the back of that.
We obviously talked about Sheffield and how it's was a hard decision for obviously not to play again, but easy in terms of the finances. And I guess did you find that was a decision that was pretty much the same across the board in the Championship and League One?
No, I've got to credit the RFL, and I know they get a lot of bad press and bad stick, and rightly so sometimes. But they were good from the off with everything that happened. They consulted clubs and they surveyed clubs, and they did everything right, I've got to say, which was positive and good to see. So it was, I couldn't see a way back for us, particularly like what Phil was saying, the amount of work that has to go on behind the scenes to get games on. For particularly a lot of part-time clubs, where our club, it's myself who's full-time and Mark Aston, and that's it. There's no other full-time staff. We run with part-time and very gracious for volunteers and the backroom staff. We don't have, whereas we couldn't operate, we couldn't manage it. And I'm sure a lot of other clubs are in the same boat. Some clubs could have managed it, but I think it would have been the death knell for a lot of clubs to come back, take the players off furlough, have no income from supporters, and paying for the testing and paying for extra cleaning and all the other things that comes with it would have seen a death knell of a lot of clubs, I think, including ours. I've got to say, I think that would have if it was mandated that we must return, I think we may have played maybe 5 or 6 games, and then we would have hit the wall.
No Women's Super League either. But we did take the opportunity throughout the year to get some of our favourite people on. Well, I say favourite, I mean we don't play favourites on this programme. But Danica, she knows everyone in Women's Rugby League, and if I need a guest, I just say, Danica, who can we have on this week? And she got for us the St Helens halfback, Faye Gaskin, who told us this story about how Leeds' successful double-winning season of 2019 could have been a whole lot different.
Because I'm perceptive, I've only just noticed over your shoulder, Danica, your medal from the Challenge Cup final. And there's the grand final there as well. As much as obviously
I think Faye's up there. Faye's up there in my England picture.
As much as you enjoyed beating Castleford last year in those finals, I think that the best games we saw last year were between yourselves and St Helens. And unfortunately for Faye, her side came out on the wrong side last year. You know, because I said when you were on the show a couple of weeks ago, I tipped Saints to win everything, which of course now is pretty much null and void. So wrong once again. But you must have been looking to resume that rivalry again this year. And Faye, from your perspective, getting one over on Leeds.
Yeah, I think the first cup I was on holiday, wasn't I? My best friend got married, so I couldn't say no. She asked me to be a bridesmaid, and then it fell on was it Challenge Cup, that one? It was a semi-final. Yeah, it was a semi-final. Yeah. So we looked at different flights to swap it. Like Mike Rush from Saints had looked, Deck had looked, and there just was no other flights to get on to get to my best friend's wedding. So I sat around the pool watching it, and I can see what I was doing now, and I just looked at my best friend, and she was like, "I'm so sorry." I was like, "I will never forgive you for this." And she we didn't speak for the rest of the day. Then I was like, and her husband to be was like, "Oh, Faye, I really thought you would win," and I was like, "I don't want to speak about it." So I'd fell out with him for the day after that. But fair play to Leeds, he didn't give up to last minute, and then obviously the grand we beat you then, didn't we, at Headingley? That's a pretty amazing stadium, and because the work was getting done then, so it was pretty phenomenal that we got to play there, really. I do always like playing at Headingley. It's a stadium I've always enjoyed. And then we played back at Saints, and weren't it, for round final? It was a playoff, yeah. Yeah, not good. I don't know what happened in our second half, but we were complacent, and I guess Leeds come out fighting for it, and fair play to him, and went on to win. And you always... it's always one thing, I think, if we get beat by someone, you always want them to go and win, then you want to be beaten by the best, I guess. If you get beaten, I think, fair play there. I thought it was quite a close game to start with, because obviously we were watching because we were flying to Australia the next day. But again, Leeds just grind out. They just do the easy stuff right, I guess, and other teams don't do that.
Bloody Leeds.
Yeah, I remember that the Challenge Cup semi-final, and hearing that you weren't playing. I remember going around I remember saying to Lowe's, I was like, Faye's not playing, that's it, we're in, we've got a good chance. Because I think, I started my rugby career, and Faye was my captain, England students. So Faye and I go back quite far, but I reckon if you'd have been playing that would have been a completely different game in terms of, I think you go under the radar a little bit in terms of game management. Your kicking game, your vision is just second to none. I think, when we talk about the best halves in the league, I think you're by far the best half in the league, closely followed by Courtney. But yeah, that definitely would have made a big difference had you been there. So thanks for your best friend for having a wedding.
I'm never booking a holiday ever again, ever. Why season one? Never.
I mean, we say always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And I guess Castleford Tigers were the bridesmaids in the 2019 Women's Super League season. But St Helens, very much the second or third bridesmaid. I don't know. 2 semi-finals. I thought they'd do well this year. As it turns out, we never got to see them play, so I wasn't proved right or wrong. But we did see some rugby behind closed doors, of course. The lucky few in the media who got to see live rugby included our man Phil Kaplan. He tells us about the experience alongside a man who, was a bit closer to the action in Cruise Leeming.
You passed the temperature test. You're all right. You're allowed to go in.
I think the first thing to say is, and genuinely mean this, absolutely hats off to everybody that got us to the point where we could have those games. Now, the work that was done behind the scenes that doesn't get seen and acknowledged, which is a combination of Super League, the RFL, and the clubs themselves, the protocols that were put in place that, we all laugh at, it's a tick box exercise. And, it was superbly organised, logistically brilliant, as good as it could possibly be in the circumstances, completely unreal. From talking to people who watch the games at home compared to the experience that the people who were in the stadium had, you actually were better at home. The incentive to not go down to the ground was greater. But the rigour with which they put in place the safety requirements was fantastic. You wouldn't have got into the ground if you hadn't completed the form on the morning saying that you weren't carrying any symptoms. You wouldn't have got past the accreditation gate if you failed the temperature test. There was only one way into the area that you were allowed into, depending on what category you were. The press and Sky were all in the south stand, but superbly allocated space away from each other. The only really odd thing was that things like there was no big screen. So again, the people at home had a better understanding of what was happening than the people in the ground. The only sound that we could hear, apart from the coaches shouting from the other side, was Terry O'Connor getting excited when he was summarising on something. And that was surreal. Because you sat there in almost silence. You could hear the collisions, that was great. But then when the action slowed down after a try, Terry screaming being the only thing you could hear was just bizarre. But we'll talk about the games themselves and what they actually mean and what the season is going to pan out to be. But as an exercise in getting the sport back on its feet, just think, need to pay tribute to all those agencies that got us to the point where it actually happened. It was superb.
It's different because you can almost hear their calls, and sometimes obviously you've got players in your team that have played for that team, and they'll translate that into your language, your names for them calls, so you know a little bit what's coming. But apart from that, I wouldn't say it's much different, to be honest with you. I wouldn't. Look, I've not played in front of a packed South stand yet, and when I do, and you interview me again, I might have a different view on it. But for me, I'm there to do a job. I'm there to make my teammates proud and repay the the coaching staff and my teammates. You know, I'm on that field for a reason. So that's all I'm worried about, really. That's all I'm wanting to get done is my job. And the nerves are still there. It's not like, oh, there's no fans and, you know, it's just it's a dead rubber or like that. The nerves are still there. We're still playing to get into that top four. Everything's still there to play for. And do you know what? In these times, I've looked upon the games and I'm looking forward to them even more than what I would have done, because what else would I be doing? You know, there's no else to do, is there? Everyone's just sat at home. Can't wait for sport to be on. I'd either be watching it on TV or playing it, and I'd rather be playing it, to be honest.
We're a show who's never afraid to talk about the real issues around rugby league and indeed society in this case, because 2020 was a year in which a light was shone upon racism thanks to the terrible scenes across America. And the Black Lives Matter movement certainly made its voice heard over here as well. Not everyone was happy. We caught up with Leeds Rhinos back Sophie Robinson, who shared her thoughts with us on a show in the summer.
You sent a tweet out last week, and I've got it in front of me so I can read what you said, because it's important. You said, I'm getting fed up with seeing so many racist posts and comments. I'm getting fed up with that. Close friends and people around me saying something all. So many people around me have a platform they're looked up to, yet it comes to racism, they're all silent. I'm fed up and angry. # Black Lives Matters. Me and Phil somehow have cultivated a platform. Phil's got a magazine. I've got this thing, or we've got this thing rather. And I saw those words and I thought, you're right. I don't really know what to say about these things, because I'm a white bloke from Wakefield. I don't experience any racism whatsoever myself personally, of course. But we're allies, Phil, aren't we, about all these things? And we have to, as individuals and certainly as a sport, or rather the other way around, we have to stand by all these people of different backgrounds and ethnicities and whatever and say, no, there's no place for abuse in our sport, no place for abuse in society.
I think every level of society needs to educate itself and understand more as best it can, whilst not being able to fully experience what other people are going through, and not just dismiss it. And I think it's very easy to say, oh, it's about a statue in Bristol. As far as I can tell, it's nothing to do with that. It's a deeply ingrained sense of injustice that goes back to the empire and imperialism, and some really important things that need discussing and opening up in all walks of life. So I think that's the first thing. Educate yourself before you say anything. I think the other thing is we go on in rugby league about being a family sport, and we don't ever define that. So it's something very trite that we throw away going, we're all in this together. And then Warrington produce a shirt which pays tribute to BLM, and I think that's a brilliant gesture. You know, that is a club that has taken on board some of the things that are clearly in the public domain at the moment. They're not looking to make money out of it. They're donating any profits to a racism charity. We should all get behind that. And then you start seeing some of the posts when they've announced they're going to do it, some of which are from their own fans. Yeah. And you absolutely have to sit down and say, we're not a family. Or if we are a family, it's not something that we perhaps should be trading on the back of until we know exactly what our family stands for. And what I think is immaterial to what people like Sophie think, because I read a piece this morning about Jordan Turner and how he was stopped and searched for the umpteenth time coming away from the John Smith Stadium, having just played for Huddersfield. And if you don't stand up and protest about stuff like that, and you're not aware that kind of thing goes on, and you're not prepared to make a stand about that, then we're not doing our job properly. And we need people like Sophie to tell us, with the greatest of our respect, what we need to do, because we can't fully understand it.
Yeah, no, I think having this conversation is important. I think a lot of people shy away from having the conversation, just they don't want to cause offence. When have the conversation, if you cause offence, someone will call you out, and it's just about apologising, learning from that. Like you said, Warrington posting the shirt, like I applauded them for that, because other teams posted photos in support of Black Lives Matters. But they went above that, did that. They were going to donate to charity, and then to see the comments from people involved in rugby league going against a T-shirt, that angered me. And we all say rugby league's diverse, it's a family, but is it actually? Like, have we actually looked at it? And I now personally, like after the few weeks, I don't think we are. I think we've got a long way to go. And I think it starts from grassroots right the way up the organisation. The RFL probably do need to do more. There's so many black players, mixed race players within the game. Why are they not, like, there's so many young people, these need to be promoted. Young people need to look up to the likes of Jermaine McGilvray, players like that. They need to look up and be like, okay, I can be the next Jermaine and stuff like that. And that's what I think is really important. We need to start from a young age. We need to get into the likes of Chapeltown, Harrows, places like that, who have a black community, get them involved in the game, because I'm the only mixed race player in the Leeds first team. Like, it's been 3 years and I'm the only mixed race female. And if you look at many of the teams, it is predominantly white. So we do need to market, promote the black players within our game. We need to get them in schools, in clubs, and I think it's an important journey we all need to go on. And it's not just down to the RFL or the likes of Leeds or St Helens. I think it's all working together. And I hope, like, the past few weeks, we're having this conversation now, which is important. And I think as long as we continue to do so, I think we are moving in the right direction right now, which is good.
I mean, you'll know, Phil. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, it's not just playing, because, again, listening to people on programmes where you can have a deeper debate, maybe a news night or whatever. There's a great podcast out at the moment called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, which, again, I think if anybody can get hold of that and watch it, it's really, really enlightening for the issues that we probably have never appreciated, who aren't involved in that environment. But it's not just about playing opportunities, it's about senior management opportunities. It's about the RFL having more people themselves who are of an ethnic background. It's about the club managements having chief executives and senior executives from different backgrounds. And I think, again, that's in our sport is merely indicative of society, that if we don't offer greater opportunities to a more diverse group of people, then you're not setting the right lead. And it's not about positive discrimination, because I think that was a phrase that 3 or 4 years ago was a bit of a turn off for people. You know, everything should be on merit. Well, it isn't if your CV is never considered. That's the problem. The issue is that if you don't get the opportunity to be interviewed and prove that you're at the very least the equal, if not the better of the people that are getting the jobs, then you're never going to change anything. So I think we all need to work harder at actually just opening up opportunity to everybody, and we don't.
Yeah, I think, like, I had the opportunity to play in school. How many schools don't even offer the opportunity to rugby league to the children? I think that's one step we need to work on, especially in rugby. But yeah, like you said, black people are discriminated against in not just sport, works of life, and I think that's been proven the past few weeks, and why the statue was pulled down. For me, why do we have a statue of a slave trader anyway? And the arguments from that, I think, is just evident of where we need to progress still. But yeah, sport has a huge platform, and I think us involved in rugby league, we have a huge platform to actually change people's minds, get the black community involved in the game, which is why I wrote the tweet, because I know there's people involved in the game who have this platform and have not spoke up on the level I personally think they could have done. And that's people I know within the game. Some people who I play with, played again, they've not spoke up. And for me, everyone has a platform, even if that's 1 follower, 2 follower. And yeah, it's an important issue, and I really want to get behind this and help any way I can moving forward.
What I think made a difference yesterday was Raheem Sterling. Again, I watched his interview, and it's very easy to clip out a headline and put it on social media. If you sit down and watch the full, I think it was 10, 15 minutes, there is an example of somebody who clearly a lot of people are going to listen to, actually saying, I might endanger my career, but this is more important. I need to stand up. I've watched England football teams suffer racist abuse, both at home and abroad. We can't blame it solely on, fans in places like Austria or wherever. And we need to get to the point where players leave the field, that people like Raheem do become the leaders and just say, I'm not prepared to put up with that. Nobody should have to put up with that. And we pussyfooted around that too long. Even in rugby league, we make much of the fact that Clive Sullivan was the first Great Britain black captain. Well, that was 1972 when he picked up the World Cup. It wasn't yesterday. And that Ellery Hanley was the first coach. Well, again, that was 1994. There's a whole generation of people that never saw. We need more people now in prominent sporting positions to stand up. It'd be great if Ellery had come out this week and said, I'm behind Raheem, or here are some of the reasons why I'm not involved in coaching a top level team at the moment. I think you'll find that my qualifications are as good as anybody else, but I haven't been offered a job for however long, and all of that is debate that we need to have. And we're not exonerated as rugby league. We're not. Just because we've got a couple of very historic milestones doesn't mean that we shouldn't be having this conversation, and we're not. And nobody should die for a cause, but somebody has to be a martyr. And if George Floyd ends up being a martyr when we look back in history, then he hasn't died in vain. And this is a moment where we need to talk about change. And I don't want in any way to feel as though it's the responsibility of people who don't understand to be saying things. It needs to be us supporting people like Sophie. That's the way around it's got to be for me, for it to have any meaning.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's not just the black community that have a voice to speak up. It is about everyone getting on board, everyone educating, everyone saying, no, this is wrong, like, this is not allowed to happen anymore. I think that's the only way we will progress. Like, how many generations have we been hoping for change? Like, it's not a new topic, but I'm just hoping that this is the last generation that actually, this is the last generation we're going to make a change now. And I hope, like, what happened to George Floyd was disgusting. Like, I think everyone can agree, like, it shouldn't have happened. But like you said, hopefully from the murder of him, we can make a positive change now. That's what I'm hoping anyway. And I think it will take us all coming together and making that next step, which I'm really hopeful for. I think the change, even in a few weeks, is we can see that. So I just hope it continues. And me having a little platform within sport, that's one area I can actually benefit and help. So yeah, that's what I want to work towards, and just doing anything I can to hopefully make a positive change.
Hopefully we'll see Sophie back on the field in 2021 as well, after that horrific injury she suffered in 2019. It would be good to see her back on the field along with the rest of the players in the Women's Super League. Sticking with women, because we now have a lady president, El Presidente herself, Claire Balding. You've seen her on the telly, on everything. Well, she's now the president of the Rugby Football League, which people get upset about because they say, well, she'd never played the game. What's she got to do? It doesn't matter. It just wears the chains thing. But she turned up on the telly at the Challenge Cup final, said lots of positive things, always says positive things about Rugby League, and we, accused of being negative all the time, are very positive about Claire.
I should say, because this is a facetious Rugby League podcast, I joked for the last 12 months that they'll have to prize those chains from Carl Hall's cold dead hands. And he's got his hands on them for another 6 months. What's going on there? But Claire Balding, it's only a joke. Claire Balding is the new president of the Rugby Football League, and she says that we should spend more time promoting women's rugby league because it's the future. Claire, you should be watching this programme. But she's going to be another good person in that role, as Tony Adams was before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, what I want to know is she going to resign for overseeing Toronto Wolfpack dropping out of the Super League? It's been an absolute...
her fault.
out.
But one less club since she took over. How is that a measure of success?
Yeah, exactly. It's balding out. Balding, by the way, is a sore subject, so I probably shouldn't go on about that myself.
Toronto cap.
I think it's great. I think she's a really good ambassador for our sport. I mean, everybody during the time that she was in charge of Rugby League on the BBC, or in control on the screen of Rugby League on the BBC, really warmed to Baldwin, didn't they? Because we saw the actual genuine affection that she had for the sport. Yeah, I think it's great. I hope she enjoys the role. It's great to hear her talk about the Women's Rugby League. It's possibly a shame that it has to be a woman that is a president to get someone to talk about making Women's Rugby League more important. Maybe that could have been done by many past presidents. But yeah, that might be a special focus for her. Great. I think, I think we all welcome her. I don't think anyone within Rugby League has anything negative to say about Claire Baldwin today. I mean, maybe John does.
No, not at all. No, good choice as president. No more ex-Arsenal players.
I think she's a potential breath of fresh air, but again, she's got this vision about what rugby league could be. So she sees the women and diversity angle as pushing the sport forward. She sees new sponsors being perhaps brought in on the back of that. She sees even new geographical areas and schools opening up to the idea of rugby league. I think she even spoke in an interview about maybe getting a company like Apple involved, which I don't think she had the phone number of the chief executive at Apple, but she thinks we've got something to sell. She likes the idea of we're an innovative, forward-looking sport. That's what saddens me about the Toronto news, that one of the legs that she was standing on has been unceremoniously kicked away from her. So, what do we want as a sport? It's all part of the same thing. Do we want to make a greater offer? Do we want to be accessible to all? Do we want to be played in as many places as we can because we genuinely think we've got a product that appeals to everybody? Or are we stuck in our ways and our geographical places? And as we've said, let's not be averse to that if that's what we are. But I use an analogy that my good friend Tony Hannon often rolls out. Country music is specific to a certain part of America, but it doesn't stop it being popular everywhere in the world. They didn't put an embargo on where it could be played and listened to. It was good enough to make its way and is accepted wherever a disc by Kenny Rogers is spun. And we should adopt the same attitude.
Rugby League as country music.
There's a segment in that. Next week, there's a show in that.
I think there's a link when it comes to expansion, and we are Kenny Rogers the gambler because we like to gamble on it.
We like to hold them, and unfortunately, it seems that today Toronto Wolfpack have folded them.
So back to matters on the field, and this other year we talked about cannonball tackles a lot because they came back in the early part of the year. In the middle part of the year, things went a bit higher up, I guess, because cannonball tackles on the knee, isn't it? Below the belt, squirrel tackles, balls. We were talking about. Who better to talk about the Tommy Makinson situation with Liam Watts than our mate Danica? Doesn't happen in Women's Super League.
So some very exciting games coming up, as I was about to say. One person who won't be involved in those very exciting games, unless he's on the telly, is Tommy Makinson, who... Liam Watts has not had a great run, has he? Almost like chopped his arm off with a saw or whatever he did. And now he's had to check them, make sure they're both still there after Makinson grabbed his testicles. I think we can say that. Grade F.
What an idiot.
Tommy the Squirrel Makinson.
Just what an idiot. What an idiot.
Again, you got to see a lot more of it probably in close-up and gory replay on the television than at the ground. You see a player placed on report and immediately going, did anybody see anything? So it wasn't immediately obvious what had happened. So the first thing you think when you realise what it is that's been put on report is, was there real provocation? You know, was he in a chokehold and he felt that the only way he could raise the attention of his potential assailant was to go for his most sensitive part? And the more you see the replays of it, it doesn't appear as though there was a reason to do it, other than he thought he was out in the fields picking grapes or something. I don't know.
Well, you know, you can watch the replays on social media and they're slowed down and they're made to look a little bit worse and stuff, but they're not. He did what he did. Like, what was he thinking? And I get it. Like, in times of frustration, sometimes you do stupid things. Like we saw them, you know, Blake Austin stick his foot out or whatever when he lost the ball. Yeah, it's a time of frustration, and there's an element where I can kind of go, I understand, but also, you're an idiot. You're an absolute idiot. Because not only do you look an idiot for doing that, and the various stick he's going to get from that, let's be fair, for the rest of the season, if not later on in years to come, but also, you know it's on film, you know it's being filmed, you know you're live on TV, and also, it's just, I'm huge into sportsmanship, and I just think if you've been tackled fair and square or whatever, just take it. It's part of the game. You're going to get tackled. You're going to lose a ball. You're going to have tries scored against you. Take it. And if you don't like it, don't play the sport. You are an absolute idiot for lashing out like that. And he's going to get a huge ban. It's going to affect them. And yeah, they've got enough on the bench and some youngsters coming through. But he is one of their class players. So impact on that now isn't. I'm idiot. That's all I've got to say.
I'm not sure you can use the word tackled anymore either.
Oh, well, there we go as well. See, it's just going to be innuendo after innuendo for months to come.
The great thing is that it produced some fantastic publicity for the sport. It was everywhere.
Yeah.
So well done, Tommy, in raising the profile of the sport. Enjoy it while you sit on your bum for 6 weeks.
Yeah, I hope people, because no doubt people have seen the clip that Gary Carter tweeted out. I hope people enjoyed the additional commentary on that clip. Don't know who he is, but Sky should sign him up. Described on the BBC as a low grab.
Low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't know what to say anymore for fear of trivialising this. This doesn't go on in the women's game, obviously, does it, Danica?
I mean, no, because that's not part of our genetics. But no, like, I think the worst thing we have is hair pulling. Honestly, I know that people might not think that, but when you're running and somebody pulls your hair at pace, it not only hurts your head where your hair is, but it's like getting major whiplash. So that's the only thing that I think is really comparable. I've been once accidentally stood on when I was playing rugby union over a ruck.
Well, that's the whole sport, though, of rugby union. That's just
but apart from that, I think hair pulling, and that's really difficult. If you've got a girl with long hair and you tackle them a little bit higher than normal, it looks like you're pulling the hair. But when somebody, like I got, and it wasn't me, I think it was Courtney, I think, in it was Castleford, and somebody just saw her hair and grabbed it, and her head flew. But then nobody got called up for it because obviously, as you well know, there wasn't much of in the way of women's match reviews then.
You've mentioned it now, and that means you'll get all the people slagging you off again for
I'm here all week, guys.
Don't do that.
We've had some great guests in 2020. Having to rely on the internet to speak to people actually worked out quite well for us in the end. One of those was Toulouse Olympiques. Jai Hitchcock's a man, of course, we know well from our days back at Radio Yorkshire and Proper Sport when he was the co-host of the 6 to 8 debate with Ollie Holmes. And he told us about his thoughts on the future of rugby league here in the Northern Hemisphere.
The other thing that's happening this year is now we clearly know there's going to be no Championship and League One, and Super League squads are under massive pressure because of the amount of games that they're trying to cram in by the end of the season. And there are some players now moving from Championship teams into the Super League on a short-term loan basis because there are exemptions out there. If somebody came calling for you in a crisis, are you ready and available to play Super League for the remainder of this year?
Yeah, I'm always ready. I thought that they might. I've seen an exemption with Toronto players where you could sign anyone from Toronto. I thought if they weren't going to run a championship, and let's look at the figures. There's some championship sides that just aren't going to be able to compete or fund if they go off the government furlough or whatever it is. That's just reality. So I thought that to strengthen a Super League competition, I know the one thing as a fan of rugby league and not just a player is I was sick of seeing, jerseys number 35, 36 and 37 4 weeks into the tournament, like 4 weeks into the competition. Not saying that they're not great up-and-coming young players, but you want to watch a spectacle. You want to watch some great footy. So I thought just as an idea that they might throw up was just to create anything goes from the championship or anywhere. Sign as many quota players as you want. If you're looking at strengthening squads, I thought that would be a no-brainer, but obviously that's not how it's gone.
If you can play halfback, you can probably get in at Cass with them. It was Grant Millington playing at 6 yesterday against Hull. But I'm guessing in training at Cass, he must have always thought, it's like all these forwards. They all think they're halfbacks. They all think they're smarter than they are, don't they?
He's actually a pretty intelligent bloke, Milo, but no, he's filled in at half a few times. I think he played 6, maybe 3 or 4 times when I was there. And look, he didn't go too bad. He's a warrior, old Milo.
Maybe you just need to be the son of a famous player to play in Super League at the moment, because I think, did we have 4 in this current round? One named Hanley for sure, and then there's O'Connor, a Harrison and a McNamara, so you'll have to look in your family tree.
Did Hanley play? Did he? The commentator mentioned him every 2 bloody seconds.
Did you not get the impression that he had? I think he may have made his debut, I'm not sure.
Yeah, something like that. But no, it's good to see all the young players getting a chance. But as I said, I just think the whole year's been a bit of a write-off for the rugby league in general. Changing it to the percentages, which I think that'll going to have to continue with the way the virus is and testing and all that sort of stuff.
So the big question is, 19 kids have made their debut in this midweek round. Clearly, some of them will be given another opportunity with the midweek rounds that we've got to come. But what if you were a young player now and you'd been given your debut, admittedly on pittance of a money, which is something that we need to look at. What is the next step for a really talented young player? Clearly, they're too good for the academy system. Reserve system's been shelved and we're not sure yet whether there's enough players to make that work properly. Dual reg is being tried, but it's not the same at every club. Some clubs do it better than others and some have more reason to do it than others. If you were a 19-year-old being given your first chance this week, would you be concerned that you don't know where your next game's coming from? And as a game, should we be looking at better pathways for young kids?
Potentially, yeah. But the other big issue is players not being able to play for X amount of time. I mean, I know it sort of works on both ends of whatever age you are. For me personally, I'm 31 now. How many good years do I have left in me? If I've had a year off rugby league, when does that finish? But more importantly, for the junior guys, as you said, getting no money, no support from the club really financially. They're playing for peanuts. Where that's enough for a young kid to go, I don't want to play anymore. For me, I'm always going to play. For 25, 26, 27-year-old, you're always going to continue playing. But a young fella that's 17, 18, 19, that's enough for him to say, right, I'm done with footy. I'm going to go get an apprenticeship. You know what I mean? So I think that's a real key issue that the clubs are going to have, especially when you've got reserves and dual reg and all these things going on. I don't see how dual reg even survives, let alone reserve grade. Super League teams need as many players as they can get right now, and we're going to hand them on to championship clubs. I just don't see how it's all going to work. I've always sort of said that the best way forward is to mimic the NRL with a Super League and a reserve grade. But for the reserve grade to work, the championship needs to either become the reserve grade or need to be scrapped. But the thing is that I learned once I got to England and lived in England is people don't want to let go of that crest. It's a really important thing to them and they value it highly, which I can totally understand. But look, if you want the bigger picture of the game, I think you need Super League and a reserve grade 2 Super League, which would be the championship. But unfortunately, you'd have to lose these crests and these badges that people love so much. But look, that's just my point. That's just my thought.
So you've come up with the perfect solution, but obviously that's not going to happen. It's like promotion, relegation, versus licensing, and reserve grade versus dual reg and everything. Every single solution that seems to be out there seems to end the dreams, quote, of some clubs, and it seems that we're never going to be able to get past that.
I think if you want expansion, if you want to turn teams into, powerhouses, if you want to get off the bottom of the relegation pile, if you want to improve and progress throughout any of this, you need change, and all great things come with change. So, look, people can either bite their lip about it and say, "Oh, I won't support rugby league." If they don't want to support rugby league after they lose their identity or whatever it is, or their crest, or they can't walk down the lane to Post Office Road or wherever they might be going, like, that's just being bitter. You're still going to watch rugby league. You're still going to be a rugby league fan, and to progress. Like, it's the same teams that win Super League each year. It's the same top four. You can pick the results every week. Like, it's just, there's at some stage people have got to get together and go, look, this ain't working.
In terms of the New South Wales League, I'm assuming that's where you started your career and you were picked up by NRL clubs. They have their own identity and their own competition in its own right, but they are genuine feeder clubs of the competition that brings the money in. Is that sort of halfway house model that we should be looking at, that you retain your identity in a separate competition, but all your development is linked to a club that plays in a higher league?
Yeah, so basically the main structure within the NRL is you've got a top 30. So within your top 30, or top 25, they used to call it. So the minimum pay bracket for a top 25 player when I was playing used to be about 45, 50K. That's gone up to now, I think it's going into 100K. So the minimum you can be paid to be in that is 100K. Now, if you think about, you've got a top 30 with 18 playing each week and 19th as a sit by reserve, you've got 11 players that are going to fall back into your reserve grade. There's only a few standalone teams in the New South Wales Cup competition, like Newtown Jets, but they partner with the Sydney Roosters. So basically, Newtown Jets, like where you're like Jackson Hastings and stuff, were playing, they'll have 11 players that are in and around a first grade system that really works under the correct coaches and around the right players they need to be around, and they'll fall back into the same competition every week. So really, the structure and the plays and the dialogue and everything that you need to follow with Newtown is the same as the Sydney Roosters. Vice versa with, say, West Tigers. Their reserve grade is called West Tigers or West Magpies or whatever it may be. But it's the same system, the same structure. But what we're doing is we're sending 2 players to Bradford and 3 players to Featherston, and I want this player down here, and this guy's young and you can take him. How much money can I get from these young players? Just send them all out and then hope for the best. But really, where's the upside to that? The upside is if the young 19-year-old kid goes and kills it, the club doesn't have enough money to pay his next year's contract and he leaves. I mean, it's just...
Or you become a finishing school for rugby union or the NRL. I mean, we saw one of the kids who played for Wigan this week, Harry Rushton. If he hadn't made his debut, he would have been going to Canberra before he'd even made the Wigan first.
Exactly.
And again, whatever it's cost to get him to that point in his career is money you never get back. So is this the time? And we talked about it a lot on these programmes and in the magazine, and I know you've been on Twitter about it as well, big, deep thinker about the game. Is this a blank sheet of paper moment? The things we're talking about, feeder systems, not necessarily clubs, how you move ahead with quotas, relegation, promotion, payment for players. Should this now be the sole focus of the sport for the next 3 or 4 months, to come up with a new version of it for when we do fully restart?
I think so, but I also think like the core of it all, of how everything comes about, needs to change as well. I mean, rugby league, you look at it, you see things happening on football, and look, I know we don't really compare it because football's got all the money in the world and whatever, but just how it all goes about. We've got a meeting scheduled for the 12th and people will find out. And then the 12th comes and it goes and no one knows anything and no one's done the wiser. I mean, I just think something needs to happen. Something needs to change in order for the game to grow. We can't just keep sitting here doing the exact same thing in the exact same position, the exact same situation and with no benefits. I mean, that's not just players, that's clubs, that's fans, that's everyone. I think just big changes need to happen, and if they don't, we're no better, we're no worse off than what we are.
Is it purely that people are scared, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier, Jai, that their crest won't exist anymore if we do make changes, and they don't want to lose that identity that we have to keep doing what we keep doing. I imagine if you're on the field and you played the same way every single set in a match, you're going to get found out very quickly by your opponents, and it's the same off the field as well.
It's exactly the same. I mean, I can fully understand that would be a bitter pill to swallow to lose your crest. But like other teams have done it. I mean, West Tigers merged with Magpies, and then they won a grand final in 2005. I mean, these things happen and teams grow and they get better. And teams either sit there and struggle or do something that's going to change for the better. I think I'd like to see a Cumbrian team. I don't know why they haven't merged, and obviously it's because of they've got that rivalry and that they don't want to lose that crest. But they would be, instead of being two bottom teams, they would be a strong mid-table to up their championship team. Do you know what I mean? But it just doesn't happen. It's strange. I don't want to sound like I'm that Aussie guy just bashing UK Rugby League, but it just seems a lot of people are stuck in their ways about change. They don't want it. They want to complain about it, but they don't want it. They don't want it to happen.
It was a Wembley final like no other, as everyone's probably already said, because Leeds played Salford in front of no one apart from the mass rants of the BBC and a few media people who were there. And Leeds won. So some things do stay the same, I guess. They're back, according to some, though some think they might have a bit of rebuilding still to do. Luke Gale was an architect of that victory, and after the match, Phil Kaplan asked him some questions.
Congratulations. Absolutely fantastic for you. You've played, I think, if I'm right, less than a dozen games for Leeds since you joined. Are you ahead of where you thought you'd be with your name now etched on the Challenge Cup?
Look, I suppose you press guys probably predicted not even to get to the top 8 at the start of the season. We never listened to that, thankfully. But we knew it. Look, I knew coming to Leeds, they had a young squad. I knew it'd kind of be a work in progress, and it still is a work in progress. But I mentioned before, the spirit that we've got is fantastic. So to win a Challenge Cup in my first year has probably surpassed all expectations, to be honest. It was probably never meant to be. But it's fantastic, and I think the journey that we're going to go on with this team is going to be a great one. I wanted to come back. Leeds have not had the best of years previous. I think they had three barren years since the 17 grand final. I wanted to come and I wanted to get Leeds back where they belong, and that was part of it. Having a young squad and building, and then blokes in there will run through a brick wall for you. So I'm honoured to lead the boys out today. It was the best moment of my career up to press. Hopefully it's the first of many, Phil.
And just finally for me, in terms of that number 7 shirt, obviously a lot of emotion attached to it, particularly this week. How fitting that you were wearing it and scored the winning point.
Yeah, massively. Look, I said when I first come to Leeds, about the time when Rob was diagnosed with MND, I said if I could do even half of what I probably won't get half, to be honest, but if I could play the way he played week in, week out, I'd do myself proud, and I think I'd do Rob proud as well. So, look, it's been a tough week. We all watched the documentary on, I think it was Tuesday night. He's heroic, how he is, his mindset still, his family's mindset. So I hope we put a smile on his face today. I know he'll have been watching. I know his wife and his kids will have been watching. So I hope we did him proud, and it's fitting that I've got the number 7 jersey exactly as he did. And how good was he at Leeds? And he just led by example week in, week out. So, no, it's a fitting tribute, and I'm proud to be the number 7 jersey.
We stick with Leeds because there was a lot of focus on them this year thanks to their former player Rob Burrow. We spoke at the end of 2019 about his diagnosis with motor neuron disease, and throughout the year of 2020 he and many of his former teammates have been raising money and awareness for that cause. One of them is Barry McDermott. He joined us a few weeks ago and told us all about how the Borough 7 Racing Club came about.
Something I didn't know an awful lot about horse racing, but a business colleague of mine. So my working week is dedicated towards Sky. My whole life is revolved around rugby league, and then in the time that I'm not doing stuff like that, and I think this is born out of when I was a part-time player and working during the day. I've always done other things, and sometimes it was coaching, other times it was going in school, and a lot of the time it was working life. And a colleague of mine who's a Wigan rugby fan floated an idea about a racing club and sent some stuff through to me, and I sort of looked at it and said, I'm not into horse racing, so I don't see how it's going to work. At the end of last year, we started having some conversations about Rob. The beginning of this year, we started putting some things together, and then, of course, the world shut down. So then you start thinking, well, do you know what? We can't do dinners, we can't do rugby matches, we can't do all these things that would normally be our go-to fundraising projects. So I just started looking at it more and more and more. And Phil Hawthorne and his company, Racing for Business, have done it before. They showed me the stuff that they'd done, and I just started to buy into it a little bit more. But ultimately, it was forced upon us because we couldn't go anywhere. So more and more and more, I was sat in front of my computer thinking, right, well, let's have a little look now. And I met some people who talked about what it would mean for the horse to be a good horse, because you don't want to buy one off the beach on Blackpool, because sadly I might be one of them in a race. And then by the time we'd got all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, we were into jump season. So we came across what is now Borough 7 with excellent pedigree. The hope is he will race at Cheltenham because his pedigree is that good. And then once everybody started to understand, and I have to say, I don't think a lot of people understood it. They just went, there's me 59 quid. I'm in. I love rugby league. I love horse racing. I love Rob Burrow. So I'm in. So a lot of it is retrospective explanations of what we're doing and what we're trying to do. But this racing club will be, hopefully, they're a little bit like Jamie Peacock jumping horses. They can play till they're 12 years old. They have to be 4 to jump. So in theory, there's a lot of years where people will buy in again to the racing club, and it's a recurring revenue to Rob's Fight Back Fund. And again, just peeling back a few of the layers of what we're doing and how we're doing it, we very quickly got to a point where the target we'd set ourselves with Rob was reached, because he's a lovely lad and people have jumped on board with what we're trying to do. So then with the other money raised, Rob's very, very adamant. He wants to help everybody. He wants to help more people. There was a lovely line on that documentary last night where Kevin said it perfectly. We've reached our target now, and we can start to help some more people who couldn't normally get it.
No one in 2020 quite got the chance to say goodbye in the way they would like, having retired at the end of the season. Two of those were James Graham and Sean O'Loughlin, who both made it through to the grand final. I'm sure when we're allowed back into grounds, there'll be plenty of opportunities to say goodbye to some of the modern day greats and legends of the game. Well, we spoke about James Graham after he announced his international retirement in the summer with Gary and Gemma Carter. They are there. You might not be able to see them. It's a Skype thing. We can't quite work out how to use it properly yet. And we also spoke about Sean O'Loughlin, who, of course, ended on the losing side of the grand final with the man who knows everything about the Wigan Warriors captain's career, Phil Wilkinson.
James Graham, who does qualify for a golden cap, which is a controversial subject on this programme. He's reached 50, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's announced his retirement from International Rugby League, which is kind of, because of everything else that's gone on, I forgot about it on Friday, and I've only just remembered it because I've looked in Scully's column this week. But speaking of non-golden capped international players, Get that rest of the world game back in. But James Graham, international retirement, and a great player for England, Great Britain, and whichever shirt he's worn in his whole career.
Yeah, he is. He has been a great player from sort of year one, year two at St Helens. He's been sort of that level. He's always been good. Then he went to great. Then in the NRL, there was a lot of expectation on him, and he lived up to them and went beyond the expectations of him. And even now he's come back to St Helens, everyone thought, it'd just be a retirement thing, like one last hurrah, he'll just sort of see it out generally. But there's none of that. I mean, being at games now, you can actually hear him talking, and you can hear what he's saying, like passing on his experience to the likes of Matty Lees during the games. Like, you don't do that, you do that, you do it this way. Like that, what he's doing for St Helens is invaluable at the minute.
I think the phrase that was used a lot at the beginning of the professional era was channeled aggression. And to me, he's always been the absolute epitome of that tough as you'd like, not the kind of bloke you'd ever want to stand in the way of, but always did it in such a way that his team were never penalised really because of it. He feisty redhead, didn't mind getting his point across to a match official, but always seemed to be on the right side of the law, and impossible to play against when you're that aggressive. But everything you're doing is virtually everything you're doing. I do remember one rather notorious incident in the NRL that he was punished for, but just about always on the right side of the law. And a joy to watch. The sort of guy who, if you're a follower of an opposing team, you'd always want him in your ranks.
I mean, just sort of a glimpse as to what James Graham done. Look at how Alex Walmsley's done since James Graham came back. I mean, Alex has sort of kicked on to another level again, hasn't he, since James Graham come back?
I mean, obviously, I wouldn't be having a bet on Wakefield versus St Helens, but if I would, I'd be backing him to score the first try, because he seems to do it every week these days.
He does,
Nightmare for prop forwards. But just back on to James Graham, and you mentioned his stellar career in the NRL. There are no prop forwards in the British Rugby League Hall of Fame. I know there are a few who've just retired who are probably going to be coming into the conversation, but when the time comes for James Graham, could he be the first prop forward into the British Rugby League Hall of Fame?
I'd certainly have him in the running for it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because he's not just like doing it for 2 or 3 years, he's doing it for 10, 15 years on both sides of the world and at international level as well.
I think you'd find that he's one of the most respected names amongst Australians, so he's up there with Adrian Morley and Gareth Ellis as probably some of the finest imports that we've sent out there in the modern era. Clearly, people like Malcolm Reilly and Mike Stevenson are earlier than that. But if they are prepared to respect him to the level that they do, it doesn't need us to tell you how good he's been.
Talk to us about Sean O'Loughlin. I don't need to ask a question. Tell us about it.
There's plenty of scandal. I'm only kidding, obviously. Do you know what? For his last game on Friday or Thursday, at the DW, I dug up the match report from his debut, and my introduction. He was in the opening line. It was something along the lines of, between the enterprise of Jason Smith and the finesse of Brett Dallas, a reluctant star announced himself last night. And it sounds almost prophetic that I would do that, but honestly, the amount of fringe players who I've declared as the next superstar who've only played 2 more games is ridiculous. But I managed to get that one right. He's still that reluctant star, isn't he? I've just done a piece of a grand final program, and I just thought I'd just check his social media, and I think the last post on Twitter was about 6 weeks ago, and even that was just sharing a Rugby League Cares initiative. He's just not one for the limelight. The biggest, I spoke to Moz last week when he announced his retirement, and Moz said that as much as we all rate him, the players put him on another level. And he said the best example of that was that we don't see, not how hard he hits and things like that, but also the confidence he gives the teammates. And also, I'll flip it on its head, the confidence it gives the opposition when he's absent. And he says, we don't see that, and it's been hard trying to find anyone to say anything bad about him in his last few weeks, isn't it? But he's deserved everything that comes his way. I mean, I've been watching his career for nearly 19 years. the impact he has on that side, the influence he has is just incredible. And for me, to stay loyal in the professional era, when he had so many options to go to the NRL, spoken to so many clubs, linked with so many clubs over the years, but to stay loyal to one club, your hometown club, in this era, for me, just it puts him right up there. It's hard, it's dangerous to rate somebody's legacy so soon and when it's raw, but I think there's no risk that he will go down as one of Wigan's all-time greats.
Well, I think there's two things about him. I think the first thing is we've seen a lot of great players. We've seen a lot of players who we would deem to be our favourite players. But there are certain players that come along, and there aren't many of them, who actively change games the minute they take a hand in them. And, you know, whether it's the first 15 minutes of a game, whether it's coming off a bench, whether it's the crucial last 5 minutes, you always look to a certain player who is associated with a certain club who is going to make the right play, who's going to turn that game around. You know, fortunate enough to see Ellery Hanley at his pomp. He was one of them. You knew whenever he got the ball and it was that decisive moment in a game, he was going to provide it. You looked at Wally Lewis in the international arena. I think, you know, whenever Great Britain were looking like they were going to win a test match, or it got to that point where suddenly Australia were under pressure, Wally Lewis would do something. To the same extent, Darren Lockyer might as well. There are very few players that define matches by what they do. Sean O'Loughlin is one of them. There is absolutely no doubt that every fan of every club would say they knew he was going to do something when it really mattered in the biggest of big games. And that is the mark of not just being a great player, but being one of the greatest players. I think the other thing is, talking from the perspective of when he could have left, you ask why clubs would be interested in taking him. And there is no doubt that 2 years ago, when Kevin Sinfield wanted to rebuild whatever culture is in a sports dressing room, the one player he wanted to bring in was Sean O'Loughlin. And it wasn't just paper talk at the time. There really was something behind it. And what it was not what he could bring on the field. I think everybody knew that he was coming towards the end of his career and injuries were going to take their toll. They wanted him at the club because they knew that having him at the club would change the whole direction of the club. The nearest they could get to Jamie Peacock returning, for example. And again, I think when people within the game start telling you that we need this guy because his influence is so much more than what you see with him with a ball in his hand, you realise how special he is. And going back to the grand final and why it's apt and appropriate, if we can have Sean O'Loughlin and James Graham on opposite sides going out on this end, field together, that's brilliant because they both deserve it. They have been amongst the best we've seen for very different reasons. But O'Loughlin is the epitome of the modern rugby league player. The fact that he could be in every dream team because there hasn't been a loose forward to surpass him, even if he's only played 5 games that year, you still went, my default position is Sean O'Loughlin has to be the loose forward. That tells you everything. He has been the most astonishing servant.
I mean, I almost want to say he's almost the last loose forward in the way that he plays that, we grew up watching the loose forwards. They seem to be an extra back row, an extra half back these days, but Sean O'Loughlin could do everything.
Yeah, I remember a game at Catalan a couple of years ago. I think they were 17, 18 points down, and Sean O'Loughlin, I think George Williams went off, and so he moved to half-back, and he literally, what Phil just said is spot on, he literally did just take that game by the scruff of the neck and got them the win, and Steve McNamara just full of praise afterwards. Even that World Club Challenge last year, Trent Robinson, full of praise for him, wasn't he? Just saying he was the standout player in that World Club Challenge defeat that Wigan had against the Roosters. So, yeah, great servant. And as you said, Phil, what a fitting finale. I hope James Graham, I don't know the head knock protocols, I hope he is playing because that would be the fitting send-off, albeit without any fans voting it at Hull.
So that was 2020. Thank you very much for watching. We could have put a lot more into this, but, it's long enough as it is. And you don't want to watch any more, For crying out loud, you've had to sit and watch me for a while. So we'll say thank you for watching, thank you for listening, thank you for downloading and subscribing and liking and sharing and all the things you've done throughout 2020. Your support is always thankfully received, or gratefully received, whichever the word is. Hopefully 2021 is better. Who knows what's round the corner? If that's something that this year has taught us, we haven't got a clue what's going to happen next there. Thank you to all the key workers, because you're the ones who keep us going, especially those of us on furlough. Who knew what that word meant at the start of the year? As it turns out, it means sitting in your garden having a barbecue and drinking beer. Who knew? Thanks for watching. Thanks for getting involved. Thanks to all the guests throughout the year who made this show what it was. And hopefully we should do it all again in 2021. And hopefully we'll be all be able to get together at some point and have some fun. Maybe at the World Cup. Fingers crossed. Thanks for watching. Have a happy and safe 2021. Goodbye.
Martin Chariot's off here of the chant fame, which is always a load of nonsense propaganda.
Yeah.
On the first season of first series rather of Strictly, but no, rugby league people don't. Even on Celebrity MasterChef, where the bar is very low as to what is a celebrity. What's going on?
I'd struggle on that program. I don't think beans and toast is that much of a meal, is it?
What's going on behind you?
I'm sorry, I was just distracted by two cats falling down the stairs.
The cats are fighting.
I love cats.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Cameo roll, Bubble and Squeak.